Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jennifer Russell. I'm a community and economic development educator with the University of Illinois Extension. I'm located in the counties of Calhoun, Greene, Scott, Morgan, and Cass County, and want to welcome you to today's local government education program. I know Nancy made this announcement earlier, but I'll mention it again. Before introducing our topic and our presenter today, I wanted to let you all know that you can certainly use the chat box during the time of the talk, and I will be watching that chat space. We'll monitor it and relay your questions to the speaker at the end of the presentation. Also note, we will be sending slides and links to today's recording for the webinar to you afterwards. Today's webinar, iRural, Research-Based Strategies for Illinois Rural Tourism Development, will focus on the challenges and opportunities present in Illinois communities that seek to develop rural tourism and understand tourist motivations and constraints. We had planned to have two speakers today for you, but one of our speakers, Dr. Soulard, had airport delays and will not be able to be with us today. But our speaker, Dr. Sharon Suiwen, Assistant Professor for the Department of Recreation, Sport, and Tourism in the College of Applied Health Sciences at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, will be here and has been a great speaker and has done this talk before. And she'll be able to certainly speak to the slides that Dr. Soulard would have mentioned. Dr. Zhao holds a PhD in Recreation, Park, and Tourism Sciences from Texas A&M University. Her research focuses on service marketing from the consumer's perspective in the context of tourism, recreation, and parks. Her interests include behavioral pricing, visitor decision-making, service recovery, international destination branding. I, along with several of my extension colleagues, have had the pleasure of working alongside Dr. Zhao and Dr. Soulard and their research team during this iRural project, and we're excited to have her here. I'm going to hand the program over to Dr. Zhao, and we'll proceed.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you so much for everyone's time to log in for this webinar. I'm Sharon Zhao. I'm currently assistant professor in the Department of Recreation, Sport, and Tourism. As Jennifer says, Dr. Soulard would love to be here and present her parts, which is the second and the first and second sections of this talk. Unfortunately, she had a family emergency and an airport delay. So I will try to do my best to present her part of this presentation. Hopefully we'll get the same information that she will be able to give you if she were here. So this project, I want to thank the extension partners. This is true collaboration between us, faculties on campus and extensions across the states, and it's funded by the Illinois Extension Collaboration Grants. So here's the agenda. So we're going to give a little bit of the background why we did this project, focus on rural tourism, and then we move on a little bit on the supply side of rural tourism and community-based tourism planning and developments. What is the process if you are geared for informed decision making for your community? And then we'll dive into some of the insights that we got from multi-state rural tourist decisions and decision-making behavior informations, and hopefully that will be helpful and informative for the marketing sides, which is the demand sides of the rural tourism. And lastly, we're going to share some resources for rural tourism development. If any towns that would love to develop their tourism, here are some of the resources that may be helpful. Okay, so let's start with why do we do these projects? So a little bit of background, and some of you may have already known that tourism represents a significant part of Illinois economy. So in 2019, before the pandemic, the Illinois tourism industry brought in $3.3 billion of state and local tax revenue and generates over 300,000 jobs, and the tourist spending totaled $41.7 billion. So as you can see, these figures just show that tourism can be an engine of economic development and growth for rural community. And by retaining those outside tourist dollars within the local community and attracting, sometimes through this tourist behavior, tourist experience, they decided to move and become residents. And then more people will be attracted to rural community throughout the state. The tourism industry can serve as a catalyst for economic empowerment, cultural understandings, and environmental conservations if it is done right. So since the outbreaks of the pandemic, rural community have experienced an increasing demand by tourists for outdoor recreation activities, small town experience, because people feel safe to travel to destination that is rural, outdoors, and has low population density. This growth in demand presents an opportunity for rural Illinois community to reimagine rural tourism. So as you can see, we see the opportunities here. So this is where the project coming from. The project's purpose is to identify the challenges and opportunity presented in Illinois community, specifically rural community that seek to develop tourism and understand tourist motivation and constraint to engaging in rural tourism in Illinois. The second purpose of this project is to design and implement a toolkit that local community in Illinois can use to guide their rural tourism development. I'm going to talk a little bit more about these toolkits, and we're going to share that toolkit with you. And basically is a step-by-step guide for rural community if they want to develop tourism, if they want to do tourism planning, how should they do that, and what are some of the steps? And that includes a lot of templates and resources to facilitate that process. So within this project, we work with 4 communities, and this includes Galena, Savannah, Havana, and Grafton. So as you can see, all these towns are rural river towns with very good outdoor resources, as well as a charming downtown area in the community. So, and they all have like different level and stage of the tourism development. Some of you may already know that Galena is very popular destinations for tourists, whereas other 3 towns may be less known, but they are in their momentum to develop their tourism and rural tourism and gaining some tractions from the tourists. So I would say that even though this project focuses on 4 towns, if your towns share some characteristics about, we have amazing outdoor resources that is untapped. We have a very cool main streets or downtown area that has a lot of histories that we would love to share with tourists. I think the findings or the resources being shared here will hopefully be applicable to your towns. Okay, so let's talk about this portion. I will do my best to present Dr. Soulard's part. So this part is about the supply side of the tourism developments. Basically focused on if your community wants to develop your tourism and wants to have a community-based planning, how should you do that? And oftentimes we'll start out with like some interview talk to key tourism stakeholders to see how they see about that, or some of the residents, and then follow up with community-wide workshops or visioning session. So I'm going to walk through this process a little bit. So the first step that we did specific for this project is in-depth semi-structured interview. It sounds very rigorous and seems intimidating, but it can be simplified as simple as just chatting with elected officials or just government officials, chatting with business owners, chatting with residents who are not directly involved in tourism. And basically in this step, that you just get a sense of where people's feelings on and attitudes toward tourism development. What are some of the aspects that are excited about tourism's developments and having a tourism industry in towns? Or what are some of the aspects that they are concerned about, or they worry that if we have a floods of a large numbers of visitors coming to town, how is that going to impact my quality of life? Something like traffic, something like I cannot get into the restaurant that I like the most in town, something like that. So basically just like get the sentiments of where the community are in terms of just like informal chatting. So it doesn't have to be, doesn't need to have like a formal semi-structured interview guy in front of you and talk to them, recording and then analyze. That's what we did because we want to do it with a rigor, with scientific rigors and do it right. So the second part that we did is a community workshop, or you can call it a visioning session for the community. So in this workshop, we bring in community stakeholders. Either they are the government officials, they are the business owners that related or directly involved in tourism. They are the residents who have no direct connections or involvement in tourism, or some of the state parts or local parts staff and managers. So in this section, in this visioning section, what we did is that we want to identify what is the strength of the community, identify the assets within the community for tourism development. So we talked about whether there's natural assets, whether there's cultural assets, whether there's political assets, whether there's financial assets, that what we are good, basically is what we are good at and what are the community strengths that we can leverage for tourism developments. So that is the assets mapping. And then after knowing what we're good at and also some of the area that can be improved, we asked the participants to rank what is the most critical assets that will make us stand out, and then what are some of the critical area for improvement that we would love the community to leverage those assets to work on. After that, we did a visioning section. So everyone who in the workshop, they have a blank, kind of like a canvas, and they can cut out a lot of the images from, as you can see from the picture, from the image here on the right corner, upper corner. They can create an image of what they want the towns to be in the next 10 years as a tourism destination. Okay, so what is the vision that, basically this is the process, is to figure out what is the vision that the community have as in the 10 years or 20 years that in terms of tourism development. So this is just a fun activity. So now that we know what we're good at, where we want to go, where is our vision, where we want to go, then we sit down to have a group discussion to talk about, okay, how we can leverage those assets that we have to go to where we want the town or we want the community to go to. So we talk about strategies that the community as a whole can undertake to achieve short-term, long-term goals, and then eventually achieve the vision. So something that I want to emphasize is the appreciative inquiry that we use in this visioning section. Because I know some of the towns, they may have baggage in the past, they may have history that carry along as time passes, that may present as obstacles for collaborations within the community for tourism development. So the appreciative inquiry basically is to emphasize, rather than what we need to fix, we focus on what we're good at and then how we can leverage those strengths for the future. So focus on the positive aspects of the community, because oftentimes we, as a community, we don't talk about how good we are what are some of the amazing things that we have in town that we'd love to share with the world. And most of the time we tend to focus on the negative aspect. So for those community workshop to be successful, it's important to focus on the positive aspects of the community. So here we summarize some of the best practices that we found across these 4 towns that may be helpful for other rural towns for tourism developments. So the first, and then we categorize them. The first category is some of the best practices to empower the community for tourism development. So we found that some towns use visitor guides or social media to feature their entrepreneurs, to feature the business owners, business entrepreneurs. And this is just a way to elicit that community pride within the tourism ring. And then we found that some of the tourism advertisement, they focus on the perspective of resident. They have the resident to talk about how cool this town is, how proud they are being a residents here. They talked about the different things that they can do within the town that is hidden gem, and not many people know, but it's just a very cool things to do. So that usually is pretty effective to increase the credibility of this type of tourism advertisement. Some of the towns that may not have a very strong awareness of the importance of investing in marketing. And some of the towns, when they talk about marketing, they focus on promoting. But as this equally important is to gaining visitors insight, meaning that understanding, doing some surveys or research to understand your visitor, why they're coming, where they're coming, where they're from, what do they hear, what do they like, what do they don't like. So those are the insights will help you to fine-tuning the tourism products and also the marketing strategies. And lastly is diversified tourism business and activity. Oftentimes, tourists not coming to a town for one restaurant, for one shop, for one outdoor recreation, for one kayaking, or for one museum, right? So it's a package. The more the town can offer, the more tourists, the more of a bigger draw for the tourists to come. So diversifies some of the tourism business and activity will create a bigger draw for the tourist. In terms of assets and resources awareness and assets, it's important to conduct an inventory, knowing what assets you have, what strengths you have. And collectively, that will be, in a collective manner, that will be the best way. We found that some of the towns has been very, very smart with their money and leverage their money for tourism developments. So for example, Havana in Illinois, they designed those matching grant program. So where the city governments will flow in anywhere between 50% to 70%, I may not get the percentage right, of the money. And then the historical building owner will throw in the remaining 20 to 50% to remodel the historical building, because the buildings are wearing off, they're falling apart, they need some work. And it turned out to be a very successful program to elicit some excitement, and also the developments of the main town, the Main Street area, the downtown Main Street area. Now Havana has a very cool downtown partly because of this program. A lot of the historical buildings have been turned into very cool Airbnb with very top-notch accommodations conditions. So as one of the examples of how to provide development grants and loan for business owners. And then create strategies to find and keep event volunteers. Small towns often have the challenge of not having enough people to volunteer for like a festivals or any events to draw tourists. So need to figure out as a community to figure out what is the best way to finally kick them. One of two more, leadership and regulation. We found that continuity in non-elected government officials, say city managers, say the teams of the whole city management team, if they have been with the city for say 10, 20 years, they were able to continue the visions and carry out that visions that being set 10, 20 years ago, and eventually the town become a very cool town that balances tourism developments as well as quality of life of residents. And Galena is an example of that. Their city manager has been with them, I think, more than 20 years, and he have been and he and his team has these visions and understand where the town coming from with those visions and be able to carry those visions through a lot of infrastructure programs, infrastructure projects, grants, and then developments within the town. Knowledge of financial management within the elected officials or the non-elected officials, the city government officials is a very important part that I just mentioned. Some of the towns would love to have a coherent look of their historical downtown area. So the streetscapes, they want it to look very cool, charming, have that historical feeling, and at the same time it's coherence. So we asked how Galena did that. If you have been to Galena, you know that Galena is a very cool town that have that very cool, coherent streetscape. And we asked them, what did they do to keep that coherent? Because different owners, they will have different idea of the design, right? So it turns out that they have this strict zoning codes and a sign ordinance to keep that coherence look. So here is some example and additional resources for you to look at if you want to keep your downtown area have this cool historical look. What other towns have been done and successfully in the past. So for example, the historic preservation ordinance that has been enforced by Galena city governments. So you can find the link from the presentation here. So lastly, I want to emphasize the important mindsets of collaborations. Tourism is not made up by one restaurant, one attractions, one museums, one parks, one outdoor recreation outfitters, and it's a package. People come and they want to have a lot of options. So by talking to towns, we found that some of the towns, they are very worried about that. Oh, if the tourists go to their shops, then their money will be stay there and I cannot get the money. So there's only the idea of only one pie and fixed size pie, and that's my side. If it's taken by others, then it will not be mine anymore. Instead of that, I think the better way to approach this will be to encourage a bigger pie mindset, meaning that if we have a number of good shops, very unique antique shop, if we have a number of good restaurants, we have a numbers of recreation outfitters, okay, outdoor outfitters that have a lot of things to do, offer to the tourists, there will be thousands of tourists coming in. The numbers of tourists coming to your town will be increasing, so that the pie will become bigger, okay? So instead of competing with each other, which is a zero-sum game, we need to probably encourage a bigger pie mindset. Let's help with each other. Let's work with each other. Let's cross promote. Let's share what are some of the best practices that I have done that has been successful in the past. So we found that when the town have that mindset, their momentum of tourism developments is really, really high and really getting the towns moving. And then the tourism number become higher and higher. Increased networking opportunity is one way to encourage that bigger mindsets. Havana is a good example. They have a monthly coffee Tuesday, coffee morning. Everybody come together who are involved in tourism or directly or indirectly working deal with tourists. And they should talk about, hey, what you have done last month, what you have done recently. Maybe, oh, you're doing that. Maybe we should cross promote. Hey, let's do it together. Or they would come together to talk about, let's have a festival. Let's have this idea. Let's have that idea. So that's how Havana has so much events and festivals going on. Their first Friday is awesome. They have Oktoberfest. And there's a tons of festivals going on. That attracts a lot of visitors to town. We recommend some mentor-mentee program for entrepreneurs, business owners, especially those new business owners. If they can get some of the mentorships from the more seasoned, experienced business owner, that will be a good way to encourage tourism business, attract visitor. If you have the resources, track your visitor, especially talk to them. It could be a survey, it could be just a informal chat with visitors that in town. I'm not doing very well with time, so I'm going to skip this and then skip to the third sections of the talk, which is some of the marketing insights of rural tourist decision-making and behavior. So the third phase of this project, we did multi-state rural tourist survey. And we sampled rural tourists within the state of Illinois, as well as the neighboring states of Illinois. So that include Kentucky, Indiana, Iowa, Michigan, Missouri, Tennessee, and Wisconsin. So as you can see, this is a very Illinois-centered rural tourist survey. So some of the findings that will also reflect that. But just wanted to have a sense that this over 1,000 responses are really dedicated to provide some insights for Illinois rural community, rural tourism developments. So the data collected last summer, and those insights will use to inform marketing strategies for rural tourism. So here are some of the key findings or key takeaway that we think may be helpful for your towns if you are developing your marketing strategy. So we asked them where they are coming from, those what states that those rural tourists reside. So of course, the majority of them in Illinois. Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize. We asked them where did they go in their most recent rural visits. So which state that they went for that rural trip. So of course, Illinois is the top destination state because the map that we draw to sample our survey. And then followed by Michigan, Tennessee, Wisconsin, and Indiana. So as you can see, those 4 states are the competing states of Illinois in terms of rural tourism, tourists. And then specifically asked them which specific places you go, which specific town you go for your most recent trips as a rural tourist. The top 5 here, Springfield, Illinois, Rockford, Illinois, Gatlinburg, Tennessee, Branson, Missouri, Starved Rock Park, Illinois. So some of them may not be perceived as a rural town for some people, but the majority of this sample coming from the big city like Chicago, St. Louis, Indianapolis. So for them, this is a rural tourist because compared to where they're coming from or where they reside. One thing that I want to point out is that even though these are the top 5, they account for very small portions of the total pie. So as you can see, there's 2.7%, 1.6%, 1.6%, 1%, 1%. What does that mean? Meaning that rural tourists, that they have a variety of places they go. They not 50% of them going to Springfield, not 1/3 of them going to Rockford. They have a variety of choices and they go to a lot of places. They spread out a lot when it comes to their destination choices. We also asked them how long do you drive for your most recent trips, and then how many hours do you usually spend when driving. Most of them drive for their trips, and we found that averagely these rural tourists, they will travel about 200 miles one way to the destination, and then about 3.5 hours one way to get to the place. So what does that mean for marketing? So that means if you center your towns, say here is Havana, let's give you an example. Here is Havana, Illinois, and you can draw a circle of a radius of 200 miles. That will be your very viable rural tourist market. Okay, so for Havana, in this example, Chicago is a big market. St. Louis is a viable market. Springfield, Peoria, okay, Bloomington, those are viable target market for them to invest their marketing dollars in. Okay, so for them, they will waste their money if they do their promotions in Kansas City, okay, or in any big cities in Iowa or Indianapolis. Okay, because most of the rural tourists will only come from this radius. Okay, so the takeaway for this is if you're spending your marketing dollars, find your town, draw a radius of 200 miles, and narrow down a few key high population area to focus your marketing strategies and your marketing effort on. Another thing is that is very important for marketing is timing, right? If we have a festival, if we have a peak seasons for our tourism industry, mostly summer, when should we start to do our marketing, right? So we asked them how far in advance did they plan their trips. And we found out that most of them plan their trip between 7 days a week to 2 months. So those are the peak. Most of the tourists will plan this either a week before or all the way to 2 months before. So 2 months before the events, festivals, or your peak season will be your marketing window because most of the decisions are made within this time frame. Okay, so say you have a festivals coming in, a big festival coming in April, in June, then you probably want to start your marketing and your promotions in April. Okay, April. We asked them where do they usually stay, what accommodation they choose. The top 3 are hotel, motel, family and relatives and friends home. One thing that characterizes rural tourists is that they come to places, the biggest draw for them, one of the biggest draw for them is to meet their family, meet their relatives, meet their friends, and then do something fun together. Okay, so this is very unique from other types of tourists. And we're going to come back to this a little bit in the next few slides. And then vacation rental, 12% of them use vacation rental a lot. This is probably one of the most important insights that we got from this survey is where do they get their information? How do they know this town? How did they find out this town? How did they know what to do in this town? And why did they decide to come? So we asked them where did they find, what is their sources that they use for their planning. So 75% of them said that friends, family, and colleagues is their #1 information source. So oftentimes they're chatting with their friends, family, and colleagues, ask them, what did you do last weekend? How's your weekend? What's fun about your weekend? Then that's the time that they share about, oh, I went to Havana this weekend. They have a very cool First Friday. Oh, I went to Grafton's. They have a very cool, very nice sceneries of the river. And I just enjoy a sip by sitting by the river. Right? So those are the time to that when they get to know a rural town. And that's #1 source. So what does that mean in terms of marketing and in terms of marketing strategies? I think something that we need to do is to incentivize those word of mouth. Okay, so if you have a visitor coming in, give them some rewards or incentives for them to share their travel experience on social media, specifically Facebook and Instagram, because those are the friends and relative based circle, right? So give them some incentive to do that. Okay, provides a referral discount. Okay, if you can refer us to your friends or family next time, you can get a discount next time you come in, and your friends as well, right? So referral discount. Bringing a friend deal or reward. For example, for festivals, you sell a ticket, say if there's a ticket sales or festival, you can have a package saying bring a friend package. If you bring a friend, you get 10% off. Okay. If you bring a friend, your next drink will be on us, stuff like that. So the idea is to encourage and incentivize that sharing among friends, family, and colleagues of their experience. And then the second top information source is previous visits. So they have visited here before, we really like it, we come back. Okay. So that shows how important to provide a satisfactory and good experience for your current visitor. And it's very high. For 46% of revisit rate, it's really, really high for tourism. Social media and networking site, for example, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Okay, those are the place that they get the information from online. And search engine, so Google or Bing, and destination website, apps, and brochure. As you can see, all three of these are online information source. Okay, so what does that mean? That means you want to build an online presence that will feed information to your potential visitors. So Google Map, do all your business related to tourism, has a Google Map team, has informations within the Google Map, has a website embedded with the Google Map, has the contact information like a phone number, stuff like that. So have a Google Map is one very easy online presence to build to start with. And a lot of visitors, they use Google Map while they're in town. They use Google Map to make like where to eat, where to drink, where to play next time. TripAdvisor is one of the top travel review site. So they oftentimes will search, say, that's tourism or vacations in Havana, vacations in Savannah. And sometimes that may links to TripAdvisor. So make sure you have your business sites or you have at least your destination sites in the TripAdvisor, on the TripAdvisor website. It's important to focus your advertising dollars, to invest those dollars in social media and digital marketing. Okay. And we found that some of the town, they haven't done a tourist insight research for a long time, so they still invest in radio, they still invest in printed a newspaper, something printed and offline, but most of the visitors are now doing online. So one thing that could be helpful here or could be effective is influencer marketing. So what is influencer marketing? So in social media, such as YouTube, there's a lot of people making their livings by creating content on YouTube, and they accumulate a large number of fans that following their contents. So if you're in charge of the marketing of your town, you can select some of those YouTubers, we call it YouTubers, who create content, and then invite them to come to your town. You plan an itinerary for them, and then have them to create a content focus on your town's tourism experience. They will post it in their channel, and that will get to reach to their channel's fan. So for this type of influencer marketing, you want to select the right YouTuber, the right influencer that is matching your target audience. So say if you're a family-friendly destination, you want to find a YouTuber that focus on family. Okay, you probably want to have somebody who have kids, right? Talking about mama traveling, what are some of the travel hacks that mamas do to bring 3 kids or 4 kids on the trip solo, right? So that type of influencer. How am I doing on time? Okay, so I need to hurry up a little bit. So, and then we asked them, what are some of the trip what type of trip you take? 47, almost 50% of them are family trip. It's a very family-oriented type of tourist. We asked them what motivated them. So what are some of the motivation they come to town? They travel with friends and family. They want to discover new things and places. They want to get away from their daily lives. They want to relax and rest. And some of them would love to be close to nature. So those are the top things that they motivate them to come to rural destination. We ask them what do they usually do. Outdoor recreation is the top list. Visit small towns, small historical main towns is one of the top things they do. Visit friends and family, as you can see, this emerge again. These themes emerge again. Be with friends and family, visit friends and family, do things with friends and family. Water and winter recreation are the top things that activity they do. We asked them, what are some of the things that you like the most in your trip, in your rural trip? What are some of the things you like the least in your trip? So basically ask them what you like the most critically things that you love, the most critical things that you hate. Natural scenery is the top liked attribute. Attractions, tourist sites, foods, and no crowdedness. Those are the things that they really value. In terms of things that they complain a little bit, they think that rural town usually involve a long travel to destination, lack shops and stores, right? The shopping, somehow some would love to do some shopping, but there's not a lot of availability of shops in there. Some of them are even closed, even though they have, but they are not open during the time that they visit. Lack of recreational opportunity. They have a good resources, outdoor recreation, outdoor resources out there, but not a lot of recreational activity being developed around those outdoor resources. This come up to a lot, poor facilities and infrastructure, lack of cell phone signals, there's no Wi-Fi access, there's parking, there's no parking, there's traffic. So those infrastructure that is often mentioned. I will use like the last 3-4 minutes to talk about the resources that we developed from this project. Hopefully will be helpful for your town's tourism development. So the number one thing that we really want to share is the toolkits, the rural tourism development toolkits. This toolkit details all the things we did in this project to facilitate tourism planning developments and informed decision-making for the town, for the community. So we talked about how we did this community-wide tourism planning by talking to stakeholders and organize and facilitate those visioning sections, community visioning section. We include the interview guide with the questions that we ask, the workbook, the template that we use for the planning section. So this includes some of the templates that we use in this project that can be readily adapted and tweaked and can be used and then used by other towns. Visitor marketing survey, we have the whole surveys there. If there's some questions that you really want to ask, but you don't know what is the right way to ask that, you can just directly copy and paste from this survey templates, tweak a little bit that will make it suitable and appropriate for your town and your contest. And then digital marketing, some of the ways to do digital marketing resources for that. So here is the link that that can directly link you, direct you to the toolkits. Besides that, within the toolkit also includes a link of the grant resources guide. So in this project, we found that rural towns oftentimes lack the financial resources to get started with the tourism developments. Specifically for infrastructure, how could they have a very cool downtown area? How could they have a sewage system that can host thousands of visitors during a weekend, right? So we developed this grant resources guide specifically for rural towns, especially for under-resourced community, and include 10 steps of getting started with grant writing, additional resources of different aspects of grant writing, and most importantly, the big portions of this grant resources guide is the information, a compiled list of information of different state, federal, foundation, corporate, association, economic development grants. We include the grant agency who give out this grant, the descriptions of this grant, eligibility, who can apply for this grant, the application dates, grant amount, and requirements. So here's the link that you will be able to have a look, give you a look at what it looks like. So this is the 10 steps, and you can just scroll down and take a look at it. And we list like a lot of the state grants that is relevant for Illinois communities. And we create this one-page snapshots of key findings of rural tourist behavior and decision-making. That basically covers what I just said, but if you want to revisit, here is your one-pager snapshots that hopefully will be helpful for your town's marketing. And then within that toolkits, we also include our tourist survey templates. We as a team researcher have done this like multiple times, but not all towns know how to ask the right questions or how to ask the questions that will get them reliable and valid information. So, so we share the surveys here and includes the most commonly used questions being used in a tourist survey. So you can just pull and just readily and directly use that. All this information and all these resources that I just talked about are housed by an extension website, and the links here. Oh, I'm sorry. And the links here. And this is being the website of community recreation. As you can see on the image on right, you can find all the links and information from this website. So here's the research team. Really appreciate them, and also the extension partner. They are amazing. This has been a very cool journey. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer. I may not have a perfect answer, but I will try my best to answer your questions. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate that.
Thank you, Dr. Zhao. Really appreciate your presentation. We did have a question on slide 16, maybe just a little bit more time on that rural tourism survey. A couple of people asked questions about that, so maybe we'll go back and just take a look. Okay. Stephen, or any of those that had questions about slide 16, if there were some, I know she kind of, Dr. Zhao did touch base on several of that in other slides. Did you have additional questions, or maybe Dr. Zhao, maybe the significance of those locations? I think you mentioned it before, but let's see. Let's see if the question comes in. Oh, okay. Limited geographic reach. Okay, let's see here. Okay, Dr. Zhao, yeah, I don't know if you're seeing some of the information in the chat box, but I think it was just the limited geographic reach of the results.
Is it about the how we sample the whole survey that we already?
I think so, yes.
Okay, what is the rationale for that? Is that the questions for that?
I think they were just wanting to know some information, but I think he did. Nancy provided some information directly, so I think we're okay on that.
Okay. Yeah, so just adds a little bit on that. So when we design this survey, we know that we want this to be as relevant as possible for Illinois rural tourism development. So it will not make sense to sample people or the investments on the returns on investments of our grant dollars on this survey may be very limited if we ask people from Florida or California. But we do get visitors from those states, very outreach states, to rural town, but they are not the majority. So that's why we focus on 8 Midwest states that is surrounding Illinois state, so that the insights will be very relevant for Illinois tourism development.
Dr. Zhao, we have another question. It's a pretty interesting one. As one of your pillars for tourism development, you mentioned focusing advertisements on the experience of residents. This person is curious about, why do you think these tourists are moved by images of residents having fun than tourists having fun? Is there a consumer psychology insight here?
Oh, that's a very, very good question. So there are 2 aspects or 2 effects that may relate to that. One is that a lot of these rural tourists, that they look for a very laid back experience. If they're looking for excitement, they can go to Las Vegas, right? If they look for a spectacular experience, they can go to New York or the national parks, right? They come to rural town for different things. Sometimes it's about that curiosity about this town's history, this town's culture, this town's living lives. So having the residents to talk about that will feed those information to them. I'm not saying that all the advertisement need to focus on residents. Okay, but you have the residents part of it will show that, hey, this is our town's history. Who can provide visitors a very, very detailed, accurate accounts of the town's history, the town's culture, the town's lifestyle, right? So that is one aspect that is specifically about the rural tourists, what they're looking for, how they are different from the tourists who go into big cities and big destinations. The second part of it is that it's a mechanism of potentially a ways to cultivate that community pride, not so much for tourists, but within the community. When you get a residents to talk about how proud they are being a resident in this town, that will elicit the pride through among the community. So those are advertisements sometimes not just for tourists, but also for the town, to get the town excited about of the development, the tourism developments, getting excited of the industry, and get them understanding the tourism industries and how cool that is, to have visitors to share their pride and their so there's a two sides of that. I hope I answered the question.
Thank you, Dr. Zhao. We did have a couple of things that were discussed. We did do 2 surveys, one that was a general rural tourist survey, but all of us working in our pilot locations around the state wanted just a little bit of time from the research department to be able to try to get some intercept surveys in each of the small communities. And so that's why the survey sample locally for those small communities was not very big, correct, Dr. Zhao?
Yes.
And so we're able to learn and glean a little bit of information from those collection of smaller surveys, but it wasn't a large enough sample size.
Yes, correct. And also, those intercept surveys tend to be more difficult to do because the visitors that they are in their vacation, so it's hard to get them, hey, can you give me 10 minutes to fill out this? And also different towns, they will have different demographics of their main target market. Some of them may be like they're not very familiar with social media, with digital, so they may prefer paper and print, paper and pencil. So those intercept survey strategy of approaching people will need to be tailored to the context of your town and the visitors' demographics and characteristics.
Dr. Sau, there's also another question about the breakdown of demographics of respondents. I'm not sure if we provided that in links to everyone. We're asking if we had a breakdown of the demographics of respondents.
We do have that. We asked the demographics information about the respondents. We didn't provide it because the limited space, but we can share that if you can shoot me an email, and my email address here. Shoot me an email, and then I'm more than happy to share that with you. Give you a snapshot of the demographics. On top of I cannot remember. Sorry about that.
Thank you. Okay, let's see if there's any. Let's see. Oh, would love to see crosstabs with destinations and that sort of information as well. So Tim, yeah, reach out directly to Dr. Zhao, and she can provide you some more information on the demographics that might be helpful.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like we're getting close to 1 o'clock. We've got time, maybe if there's any other last minute questions. Take a look and see. Just as someone who worked on the team with Dr. Zhao and the research team, I just want to say to those on the call, Dr. Zhao and Dr. Soulard have been just super approachable and able to get in touch with at any time. And so please feel free to make sure you send those emails to reach out to them. We also, as part of what Dr. Zhao talked about, we're really looking at, community assets and who you have within your community. And really a special link for us in the Grafton area is our destination marketing, Great Rivers and Routes, tourism bureaus. And so we encourage those on the call to also, seek out your assets within your community. Who are those destination marketing organizations that are working within the community? Are there some extension educators and others working in your community? A lot of times people ask us, I just want some grant dollars, and we always tie. So we wanted to make sure we did have a link to grant information, but it's that planning side and making sure you've got a small group that's, on that, weekly or twice, every, twice a month meeting dates that keep the vision that you have in your communities alive. So we encourage you to kind of do both, keep the planning aspect up as you're searching for grant dollars. And thrilled to also see from Dr. Zhao's research that, really working together, not only just within your own town, but within the region of your, tourists coming to the area is super important for gaining more, I guess more effort and collaboration and hopefully, higher sales for those businesses and people coming to your area to spend money and to see your communities. Let's see if there's any last minute question here. Can Dr. Zhao share the demographic snapshot? Okay, so we've got a few of those questions out there. Okay, oh, let's see. Yes, Dr. Zhao, we had a number of people wanting that. So maybe you could share the demographics with Nancy before we put out the information back to the group, then you want to have everyone calling you. So that might be helpful too.
Yeah, so I could just create another one pager about the demographics, and maybe have a second page of that snapshots of survey towards the survey insights, and then attach the demographics on second page and just add on that.
That sounds good. Looks like Nancy has put up a poll for everyone to report back.
Do I still share my screen? Or okay, I'm going to stop share.
Yeah. Okay, it sounds like people have taken some time to respond to our poll. And I want to thank you all for participating in today's webinar. You will receive the information, a registration link and follow-up emails later today, hopefully, or tomorrow. And we encourage you, to go to our website, goillinois.edu/LGE for additional webinars that are coming up. Again, thank you to Dr. Zhao and the team for today's presentation.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate that.